The elevator doors slid open on the 57th floor, and Serafina Whitmore stepped into a war zone. Her CFO was in tears. Her head of HR was shouting into 3 phones simultaneously. And her legal team looked like they'd just watched their own funeral. The cause of this chaos sat calmly in the center of her executive conference room, a man in a worn leather jacket, faded jeans, and work boots that had definitely never seen the inside of a boardroom before. He was holding a crayon drawing of a purple dinosaur. "Mr. Calder," Serafina said, her voice cutting through the noise like a blade. "I was told you refused to sign the settlement." "That's correct." Beckett Calder didn't stand. He didn't flinch. He simply looked up at her with steady gray eyes that held absolutely no awe whatsoever. "I don't want your money." The room went dead silent. 16 high-powered executives, each making more in a month than most people saw in a decade, stared at the man who had just turned down a 7-figure payout like it was a stale bagel. "I'm sorry," Serafina said, sliding into the chair across from him. She folded her hands on the polished mahogany table. "Did you just say you don't want my money?" "I did." Beckett set the dinosaur drawing on the table and smoothed its creased edges with surprising gentleness. "My daughter drew that this morning. She's 4. She's been asking me every day for the past 2 weeks why we have to move again. And since your company is the reason we're being evicted from our apartment, I figured I'd come here and tell you to your face that I don't want your blood money." The silence stretched. Somewhere in the background, someone's phone buzzed. Nobody answered it. "Mr. Calder," Serafina began carefully, "I understand you're upset. The construction project next to your building was approved by the city. The noise complaints were documented. The settlement offer is more than generous." "Generous." He laughed, and there was nothing warm about it. "You're putting my daughter on the street, and you want me to call you generous?" Serafina opened her mouth to respond, but he wasn't finished. "See, I know who you are, Ms. Whitmore. I did my research." He leaned forward, those gray eyes pinning her in place. "You're the woman who fired 100 employees on Christmas Eve because it would look better in the quarterly report. You're the woman who evicted an entire senior living facility to build a parking garage. You're the woman who's never met a problem she couldn't throw money at. You're the woman who had a stillborn daughter 8 years ago and went back to work 3 days later like nothing happened." Serafina felt the blood drain from her face. "How do you know about that?" "I told you. I did my research." His voice was flat. "I wanted to know who I was dealing with. And I found out that you're not just cold. You're someone who lost a child and decided the best way to deal with it was to become a monster." "Those are they lies?" he interrupted. "Tell me one of those stories isn't true." She couldn't. Because they were true. Every single one. Beckett stood up, tucking the dinosaur drawing carefully into his jacket pocket. "I didn't come here for your money. I came here to tell you that I'm going to fight you. Not with lawyers. Not with settlements. I'm going to make sure the whole city knows exactly what you did to my family. And then I'm going to find somewhere else to live, somewhere far away from you and your empire." He walked toward the door, then paused. "You know what the funny thing is? You probably think you're the powerful one in this room. But I've got something you'll never have. I've got a daughter who draws me pictures. I've got a reason to wake up in the morning that has nothing to do with money or power. You've got an empty penthouse and a name people say with fear. I'd rather be me than you." The door clicked shut behind him. The silence in the conference room was absolute. Serafina sat there for a long moment, staring at the empty chair where Beckett Calder had been sitting. Her executives were watching her, waiting for the explosion. But it didn't come. Because something about what he'd said had landed somewhere deep in her chest, and she couldn't shake it loose. The next morning, Serafina found herself standing outside a crumbling apartment building in the worst part of the city. The windows of the 5th floor were boarded up. The fire escape was rusted. And in the courtyard, a little girl was drawing on the pavement with yellow chalk. She recognized the purple dinosaur immediately. "Excuse me," Serafina said, approaching cautiously. "Are you Mr. Calder's daughter?" The little girl looked up, her face smudged with chalk dust. She had her father's gray eyes, bright and curious, and a gap-toothed smile that made something twist painfully in Serafina's chest. "I'm Lily. That's my daddy." Beckett appeared in the doorway behind her, his expression shifting from shock to anger in about half a second. "What are you doing here?" "I wanted to see." Serafina gestured vaguely at the building. "I wanted to see where you live." "Why?" he demanded, scooping Lily up and holding her protectively. "So you can come back with a bulldozer?" "I came alone," she said quietly. "I didn't tell anyone I was coming. I just..." She trailed off, suddenly unsure of what she was doing here. "I couldn't stop thinking about what you said. About you being heartless? About your daughter," she corrected. "About having a reason to wake up." Something flickered in his expression, there and gone. "What do you want, Ms. Whitmore?" "I don't know," she admitted. "I don't know what I want. But I know I don't want to be the woman who puts a little girl on the street." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a piece of paper, not a check, but an address. "I own a building. Not through the company. It's mine, personally. It's in a good neighborhood, good schools. It's been sitting empty since I bought it. I don't know why I bought it, honestly. I don't know why I do half the things I do." Beckett stared at the paper like it was a snake. "You want to move us into your building? Why? So you can keep an eye on us?" "So you can." "I want you to have a place to live," she interrupted. "That's it. No money. No settlement. No strings attached. Just, a place to live." "You don't do things without strings," he said flatly. "That's not who you are. Maybe I'm trying to be someone else." She held the paper out further. "Take it. Please." Lily reached out and snatched the paper before her father could stop her. "Daddy, there's a playground," she exclaimed, pointing at the photos on the back. "Look. Swings and everything." Beckett's expression softened as he looked at his daughter's excited face. When he looked back at Serafina, some of the anger had faded, replaced by something more complicated. "Why are you doing this?" "I told you," she said. "I don't know." But she did know. She knew exactly why she was here. Because when Beckett Calder had said he'd rather be him than her, she'd realized something terrible: she would rather be him too. Over the next few weeks, Serafina found herself drawn back to the building she'd given them. Not to check on them, she told herself. Just to make sure everything was okay. She'd tell herself that every time she walked up the steps. Lily was always the first to spot her, running to the window and waving frantically until Serafina waved back. Then Beckett would appear, arms crossed, that guarded expression on his face. But the walls were slowly coming down. "You don't have to keep coming," he said one afternoon, watching Lily teach Serafina how to draw a proper purple dinosaur. "I know," Serafina said, her tongue poking out in concentration. "I want to." "Why?" She looked up, meeting his eyes. "Because I think you might be the first person who's ever told me the truth about myself. And I think I needed to hear it." Beckett was silent for a moment. Then he sat down on the floor across from her, picking up a stray crayon. "She's not going to draw on your shoes, you know. She's not a savage." "I don't care about my shoes," Serafina said, and meant it. That evening, Beckett made dinner. It was simple: pasta with Jared sauce and some vegetables he'd bought from the market. But Serafina couldn't remember the last time she'd eaten a meal that wasn't delivered on a silver tray. It was warm. It was real. It was nothing like her world. I had a daughter once, she found herself saying. Well, I had a daughter on paper. She was stillborn. Her name was Genevieve. The words fell out of her mouth like stones, heavy and cold. She hadn't spoken them aloud to anyone in 8 years. Beckett's hand stilled on his fork. I'm so sorry. It was a long time ago, she said automatically. It doesn't matter anymore. The hell it doesn't. His voice was rough. It matters. It always matters. She looked away, blinking back tears. I didn't tell anyone when it happened. I went back to work 3 days later. My mother told me it was better that way, no attachment, no grief. Just business as usual. Your mother sounds like a piece of work. She was, Serafina said, a ghost of a smile crossing her face. She's dead now. I didn't cry at her funeral either. Beckett reached across the table and took her hand. His palm was calloused, his grip firm. You don't have to be tough all the time, you know. Force of habit. I know. He squeezed her hand. I'm a single dad. I know all about pretending to be okay when you're falling apart inside. How do you do it? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. How do you just go on? He smiled, a real smile, the first one she'd seen him give her. You look at them. The ones who need you. And you decide they're more important than everything else. She cried that night in her penthouse, alone, for the first time in years. She cried for the daughter she never got to hold. She cried for the girl she used to be, the one who believed in love and family and happy endings. She cried for the woman she'd become, the one who'd locked away her heart so completely she'd forgotten it was there at all. And when she woke up the next morning, she knew what she had to do. Weeks passed, and Serafina became a regular presence in Beckett and Lily's lives. She'd come over after work, help with dinner, read bedtime stories. She'd take Lily to the park on weekends while Beckett caught up on his architectural work. She'd bring groceries when she noticed the fridge was empty, and she'd fix things around the house that had been broken for months. But there was one question she'd been avoiding, and she knew she couldn't avoid it forever. What happened to Lily's mother? She finally asked one evening, sitting on the porch swing while Lily played inside with her dolls. Beckett stiffened beside her. That's complicated. Everything about you is complicated, she said with a small smile. But I want to know. I want to know everything about you. He was silent for a long moment. Then he took a deep breath. Her name was Cora, he began. We met in college. She was beautiful, smart, ambitious. She wanted to be a lawyer. I was studying architecture. We fell in love fast, too fast, probably. We got married right after graduation, and I thought we were going to have this perfect life together. Serafina listened, her heart aching for him. The first few years were good. Really good. Then Cora got pregnant with Lily, and everything changed. She started to resent me. She said I was holding her back from her career. She said I was too simple, too content with small things. She wanted the big city life, the fancy apartment, the designer clothes, the high-powered job. I wanted a garden and a porch and a family. Did she leave? Serafina asked gently. Not at first. His voice was tight. She stayed until Lily was born. Then she started staying out late, missing dinners, coming home in the early hours of the morning. I pretended not to notice at first. I told myself she was just stressed about being a new mother. I told myself she loved me, loved us, and she was just going through a phase. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. I was such an idiot. She was having an affair. It had been going on for months. When I found out, I confronted her, and she didn't even try to deny it. What did she say? She said she'd never really loved me. She said I was just a stepping stone, a safe choice while she figured out what she really wanted. He closed his eyes. She left that night. She didn't even say goodbye to Lily. She just packed her bags and walked out the door. I found a note on the kitchen counter, 3 lines, telling me not to contact her, that she was starting a new life, that we were better off without her. Serafina's heart broke for him. That's terrible. That's unforgivable. I thought so too, he said. For a long time, I was so angry. I was angry at her for leaving. I was angry at myself for not seeing it coming. I was angry at the world for giving me this beautiful daughter and then ripping away everything else. But you moved past it, she said softly. I had to. He looked at her, those gray eyes full of a quiet strength that made her breath catch. Lily needed me. She was just a baby. She didn't understand why her mother had left. She'd cry at night, reaching for someone who wasn't there. And I'd hold her and promise her that I was never going to leave. I was never going to abandon her. You're a good father, Serafina said. The best father I've ever met. I'm just trying to be the parent she deserves, he said. Her mother might have walked away, but I'm never going to. I'm going to be there for every first day of school, every birthday, every scraped knee and broken heart. I'm going to show her that she's worthy of love, even if her own mother couldn't see it. Has she ever tried to contact you? Serafina asked. Has she ever tried to see Lily? He shook his head. She sent a letter a year ago. Said she was living in Europe with some wealthy businessmen. Said she was happy and didn't want to be reminded of the past. She included a check for $5,000. I tore it up and threw it away. Lily deserves more than a check from a stranger. She deserves a mother who actually wants her. Serafina reached over and took his hand. She has you. That's more than enough. Lately, she's been asking about you, he admitted. She asked me if you were going to be her new mommy. I didn't know what to tell her. Tell her the truth, Serafina said. Tell her that I want to be. I want to be everything she needs. I want to be someone she can count on. I want to be someone who never leaves. Beckett looked at her, something vulnerable in his expression. You really mean that? I've never meant anything more in my life. The community center was a crumbling shell of a building in the heart of the city. It had been closed for months, condemned by the city after a series of budget cuts left it unsafe and unusable. The families who depended on it had nowhere else to go. Serafina had seen the building on her way to work every single day for 3 years, and she'd never once given it a second thought. Now, she couldn't stop thinking about it. I want to restore it, she told her board the following Monday. I'm diverting funds from the development project. We'll use it to rebuild the community center instead. The room went silent. Then, chaos. That's impossible, her CFO sputtered. The development project is worth billions. I don't care. Serafina, you're not thinking clearly. This is. I'm thinking clearly for the first time in my life, she interrupted. That community center serves 300 children every day. It provides meals, education, after-school programs. The families who use it can't afford anything else. And I've been walking past it for years without doing anything. This isn't like you, someone said. No, she agreed. It's not. It's who I used to be before I forgot who I was. She didn't tell them about Genevieve. She didn't tell them about the little girl who'd taught her to draw purple dinosaurs. She didn't tell them about the father who'd shown her that power wasn't measured in money or influence. She just told them it was happening, and that was that. The news spread fast. Within days, every major network was covering the story. The billionaire CEO who'd single-handedly saved a community center, who'd personally funded its restoration, who'd been seen at the groundbreaking ceremony in jeans and an old t-shirt, holding a shovel with a little girl by her side. "Who is she?" the reporters asked. "Who does that? Where's the catch?" But there was no catch. Serafina Whitmore, the woman who'd been called the Ice Empress by the press, was suddenly everywhere. At community events, at school fundraisers, at park cleanups. She was photographed laughing with children, serving meals at the center, even sitting on the floor of a classroom reading to a group of toddlers who didn't care about her money or her power, only about the story she was telling them. Beckett watched it all unfold from a distance, amazed. "She's different," Lily said one evening, drawing at the kitchen table. "She's not scary anymore." "I know," Beckett said softly. "She's really not." The community center's grand reopening was the biggest event the city had seen in years. Serafina stood on the stage, microphone in hand, looking out at the sea of faces that had gathered to celebrate. There were children, parents, city officials, volunteers. And there, in the front row, was Beckett with Lily on his shoulders. "I want to tell you a story," Serafina began, her voice steady. "I used to think that success meant money. I used to think that power meant control. I used to think that the only way to protect myself was to never let anyone get close enough to hurt me. I used to think that love was a weakness, and that the only person I could ever rely on was myself. I used to think that my daughter, Genevieve, was a tragedy I needed to forget. I thought if I pushed her memory away, I could push away the pain. But all I did was push away my own heart." She paused, her voice catching. The crowd was silent. "I was wrong. I was so wrong. I had convinced myself that I didn't need anyone. I had convinced myself that I was better off alone. But the truth is, I was terrified. I was terrified of getting hurt again. I was terrified of losing someone else I loved. So I built walls so high and so thick that I forgot how to let anyone in." She looked at Beckett, and the crowd fell away. "Then I met a man who had nothing. He had no money. No influence. No power. But he had something I didn't have. A reason to wake up in the morning. A reason that didn't have anything to do with a stock report or a quarterly earnings call. He had a daughter who drew him pictures. He had love. He had hope. He had everything that mattered, and he didn't need a single thing from me." The crowd was silent, hanging on her every word. "He told me he didn't need my money. And you know what? He was right. He didn't need a single penny from me. He needed something else entirely. He needed someone to see him. Someone to listen. Someone to believe that he mattered. And I realized that I needed those same things. I needed someone to see through all my walls. I needed someone to show me that I wasn't broken. I needed someone to remind me that I could still love, that I could still be loved." She stepped down from the stage, walking toward where Beckett and Lily were standing. "He was the one who saved me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper now. "He gave me back something I thought I'd lost forever. He gave me back myself." Beckett set Lily down, his eyes glistening. "What are you doing?" he asked quietly. "I'm telling everyone that I love you," she said. "I'm telling everyone that I want to spend the rest of my life trying to be someone who deserves you." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. "Beckett, I know I've done terrible things. I know I've hurt people. I know I've built my life on ambition and cold calculation. But I'm trying to be different. I'm trying to be better. And I want to do that with you. I want to raise Lily with you. I want to fill that house with laughter and chaos and love. I want to be the mother she deserves. I want to be the partner you deserve." "You're serious?" he asked, his voice thick. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. Lily tugged on Serafina's sleeve, her face serious. Are you going to be my mama? Tears spilled down Serafina's cheeks. Do you want me to be? Lily nodded, her curls bouncing. Daddy needs a person to hug. And I need someone to read my bedtime stories. And you're the best at both. And you don't get mad when I draw on the walls. Beckett laughed, but it came out more like a sob. I can't afford a ring, he said. I can't even afford to take you to dinner somewhere nice. I don't need a ring, Serafina said. I don't need a dinner. I just need you. I just need her. I just need a family. He pulled her into his arms, right there in front of everyone, and kissed her like she was the only person in the world. The crowd erupted. Lily cheered. Someone threw confetti. And Serafina Whitmore, the Ice Empress, the woman who'd built an empire on cold calculation and ruthless ambition, finally melted. 6 months later, Serafina Calder sat on the porch of the house she and Beckett had built together, watching Lily chase fireflies in the backyard. The community center was thriving, one of the most successful programs in the state. The building Serafina had once owned as a cold investment was now a home filled with laughter and love and the chaos of a growing family. Beckett came out with 2 glasses of lemonade and sat down beside her. The garden is doing well, he said. The tomatoes are almost ready. And Lily wants to plant sunflowers next week. I love that, Serafina said, taking the glass. I love watching her get her hands dirty in the soil. She's so full of life. She gets it from you, Beckett said. She smiled. She gets it from both of us. Lily ran up the steps, covered in dirt from head to toe. Mommy. Daddy. Can we have s'mores? Please. Beckett laughed. It's almost bedtime, sweetheart. But Daddy. No buts. He scooped her up, and she giggled, wrapping her arms around his neck. Tomorrow. I promise. Serafina watched them, her heart so full it ached. This was everything she'd never thought she could have. This was the family she'd convinced herself she didn't need. Tell me about Genevieve again, Beckett said softly, settling Lily on his lap. Tell me about her. Serafina closed her eyes, letting the memory wash over her. She was born too early. 24 weeks. They told me she wouldn't survive. They said I should prepare myself. But I didn't believe them. I held her tiny hand through the incubator. I sang to her. I told her about all the things we'd do together. I was so sure she would fight. Her voice cracked. She died 3 days later. I held her in my arms, and I felt her go. I felt her leave me. And something inside me left with her. I buried her in a tiny white dress that I'd bought before she was born. I never told anyone that. I never told anyone I kept it. Why didn't you tell anyone? Because it hurt too much, she whispered. Because if I said it out loud, it would be real. If I said it out loud, I'd have to face the fact that I failed her. That I couldn't protect her. That I was supposed to be her mother, and I couldn't even keep her alive. Beckett pulled her closer. You didn't fail her. You loved her. You held her. You sang to her. That's not failure. That's a mother's love. I should have cried, she said, the words spilling out. I should have screamed. I should have thrown things. But I went back to work. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself that children were a weakness. I told myself I was better off alone. And I've been telling myself that lie for 8 years. Until now, he said gently. Until now, she agreed. Until you. Until Lily. Until I realized that pretending not to love doesn't make the pain go away. It just makes you forget how to love at all. They sat in silence for a long time, watching the stars appear in the sky above them. Every year on her birthday, I take a chocolate cupcake to her grave, Serafina said softly. I sit there and I talk to her. I tell her about my life. I tell her about all the things I wish she could see. And then I eat the cupcake and I go home. I've never told anyone that either. Will you take me next time? Beckett asked. She looked up at him, surprised. You want to come? I want to meet her, he said simply. She's a part of you. She's always going to be a part of you. And I want to know her too. Lily, who had been listening quietly, reached out and touched Serafina's cheek. I want to meet her too, Mommy. I want to see her grave. I want to bring her a flower. Tears spilled down Serafina's cheeks. You really want to come? I want to bring her a purple flower, Lily said seriously. Because purple is the best color. And I can draw her a picture of a dinosaur. She can have it with her. Serafina buried her face in her hands, sobbing. Not the silent, controlled tears of a CEO who couldn't afford to show weakness. These were the racking, ugly sobs of a woman who'd been holding on to her grief for 8 years and was finally letting it go. Beckett held her through all of it. Lily wrapped her little arms around Serafina's neck and held on tight. It's okay, Mommy, Lily whispered. It's okay. I'm here. Daddy's here. We're not going anywhere. When the tears finally stopped, Serafina felt lighter than she had in years. The weight she'd been carrying, the guilt, the shame, the grief, it was still there. But it wasn't crushing her anymore. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you both for understanding. Thank you for trusting us, Beckett replied. Thank you for letting us in. Lily had fallen asleep on Beckett's lap, her face peaceful and content. Serafina reached over and stroked her hair, marveling at the miracle of it all. I used to think that love was a weakness, she said softly. I used to think that the only way to survive was to never let anyone in. I built walls so high and so thick that I didn't think anyone could ever climb them. And then I climbed them? Beckett teased. Not exactly. She smiled. You knocked them down. You showed up in my conference room with a crayon drawing and a chip on your shoulder and told me I was broken. And you were right. I was broken. But you helped me put the pieces back together. You weren't broken, he corrected. You were just lost. You'd lost sight of who you were. But you found your way back. Because of you. Because of us, he corrected. You can't take all the credit. She laughed, the sound bright and free. Fine. Because of us. Inside the house, the Esmores supplies were waiting on the counter for tomorrow. The garden Beckett had planted was full of vegetables and flowers. The community center was humming with activity, full of children who had no idea that the woman who ran it had once been the ice empress who'd never let anyone close. Serafina knew, though. She knew exactly how far she'd come. And she was grateful for every single step of the journey. I love you, she said, kissing Beckett's cheek. I love you so much. Love you too, he said. And I don't need your money. She laughed, shoving him gently. You've already made that very clear. Yeah, but it's still funny. He grinned. Imagine if I'd taken that settlement. I'd be living in some penthouse somewhere, probably alone. I wouldn't have this. I wouldn't have you. You wouldn't have been alone, she said. You'd have had Lily. You'd have had your center. You'd have been fine. Fine is not the same as happy, he said. I never knew I could be this happy. And it's not because of the money. It's not because of the house or the community center or any of that. It's because of you. It's because we're together. Serafina leaned her head against his shoulder, watching the stars appear in the sky above them. Somewhere inside, Lily stirred in her sleep, murmuring something about purple dinosaurs and esmores. And in that moment, everything was perfect. "Thank you," Serafina whispered into the darkness. "Thank you for not needing my money." "Thank you for understanding that I didn't," he replied. "Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for loving Lily like she's your own. Thank you for being everything I never knew I needed." She didn't say anything else. She didn't have to. The silence between them was comfortable, full of all the things they didn't need to say. When she finally closed her eyes, she was smiling. And when she dreamed of crayons and construction paper and a little girl who'd taught her how to draw purple dinosaurs. She dreamed of a tiny white dress she'd kept in a box for 8 years, and of a grave she visited every year with a chocolate cupcake and a heart full of love. She dreamed of a man who'd seen through all her walls and loved her anyway. She dreamed of a future filled with laughter and chaos and esmores on the porch. She dreamed of a little girl with gray eyes who called her mommy and meant it with every fiber of her being. The Ice Empress was gone. In her place was a woman who discovered that the most valuable thing in the world isn't something you can put a price on. It's love. It's family. It's finding someone who sees you for who you truly are, and loving you anyway. Serafina Calder had found that. And she was never letting it go.